Hi, welcome back to Module 6, Adaptive Decision Making. I'm Dr. Prabhakar Gantasala, Associate Dean of School of Business at Southern Connecticut State University, and I'm happy to be talking about Module 6, which is Adaptive Decision Making. The learning objectives for this module are mastering decision making frameworks, how do agile leaders take decisions, what kind of decision making frameworks do they use, how do they balance intuition with data while taking decisions. And that's a very important aspect of agile leadership. And to figure out how these decision making frameworks can make agile leaders' vision a reality. How can they make their vision come to fruition? And how can they achieve the organization's goals and KPIs? The decision making frameworks that we are going to discuss today, the first one is CINFEN framework. So the CINFEN framework is a decision making model that helps people understand and solve problems in a very complex environment. And for us to be able to understand how the situation pans out is extremely important before any decision can be taken and implemented. The framework breaks problems down into four domains: obvious, the complicated, complex, and chaotic. It also includes a disorder domain, which is used when the situation is unclear or between two domains. The framework that we talked about here also helps people understand how to approach situations and how different circumstances affect decision making of agile leaders. It's also based on the idea that every problem is pretty unique and requires a very different approach towards solving a problem because of how unique a problem can be. What is the CENFEN framework used for? It's used in decision theory, knowledge management, and project management. So any new project that you want to implement as an agile leader, you might use this framework towards implementing that project. It can help leaders and organizations navigate complex and uncertain situations. How do you use this framework? The CENFEN framework can be used by trying to analyze the cause and effect relationships in any given situation. So identifying the domain becomes extremely important in this framework. If the cause and effect relationship is pretty clear, the situation can be classified as being obvious. If the cause and effect relationship, for example, is extremely complex, the situation is likely defined as the complex domain. If the cause and effect relationship is pretty unpredictable, the situation is likely in the chaotic domain. So it's first and foremost, agile leaders should be able to define what kind of environment they're actually facing in the organization in terms of the business environment, and based on which they have to create, problem solving teams to work together to generate problems based on the complexity, based on the uncertainty, and based on the obvious. So domain identification, then putting a team together, and then working with the team based on data and trying to come up with decisions that fit that particular domain that has been earlier defined. That's the first framework. Also, the response matching OODA loop can be a framework, a decision making framework that agile leaders can use. The OODA loop, as discussed in a prior module as well, means that there are four different steps that agile leaders can take while assessing the environment, making sure that the agile leader builds a particular strategy, creates an action plan or a strategic action plan, and then makes sure that they can implement it. So the first step is the ability of an agile leader to observe. So when an agile leader observes an organization, its members, its environment, its competition, and also observes the practices, the methods that are followed, the processes that are in place, the policies that are being followed, and also employees and team members' inclinations and preferences, and also has an observation of what the prior strategic plan was all about. The orientation is the ability of an agile leader to be able to talk and engage different stakeholders, including individuals and teams, and several of the organizational stakeholders in ways that they align with this new strategic plan, the new vision of the leader, agile leader, and therefore these repetitive meetings only reinforce their willingness to participate and engage in achieving the new vision that an agile leader brings to the table. The third step in the OODA loop is decision. So this is a point of time where decisions are taken. The agile leader is pretty quick at making those decisions based on the first two elements of observe and orient. And once those decisions are taken, action is being mobilized, the strategic action plan is being rolled out, and with the help of providing resources to individuals and teams, actions are mobilized and made sure that the strategy gets implemented and executed. Example is of Tesla's market response. So there's an observation orientation and then decision and action cycle, which also is the third framework called the PDCA cycle: plan, do, check, and act, like what Toyota does in terms of case and practices. Toyota implements planning, doing, and then checking and validating if their plans are working or not. Also assessing based on what they observe from the environment itself, and then take appropriate action, corrective action, so that the PDCA cycle of decision-making framework can be implemented. So it's also that organizations can use a continuous improvement framework where iterative learning is supported, that organizations tend to take decisions based on measured risk. They think outside the box, they learn from mistakes. It's a generative process of learning and based on continuous improvement, and made sure that this framework works for the organization in support of learning, in support of innovation. I would strongly recommend the video, that decision making models by Harvard Business Review people. It's available on YouTube for you to be able to watch it and learn on the decision making frameworks. The next topic that we will discuss in this module is data driven decision making. Now, the key components of data-driven decision making, we all understand that in today's world, data is extremely important. Everything that customers do, everything that clients engage in, is converted into data points that organizations can secure, collect, analyze, and based on which they can take decisions to improve the products or services and customize the product design and delivery of services as per what customers tell us or what clients want from us. So the first component of a data-driven decision making is data collection itself. Example that we have talked in prior modules is about Netflix taking real-time feedback from viewers, from audiences, and also from content creators like directors and other people who are engaged in creating content. So Netflix is able to analyze that data, view analytics, and then obviously also have data by customer observation, customer behavior tracking, and utilizes performance metrics of how certain content has done better on streaming in terms of viewership. And so obviously Netflix is depending on how to make those incremental changes and improvements based on extensive amount of data that's collected, represented in a visually understandable way, so that decision makers can take interpretive action towards improving content creation, content delivery, content availability, and marketing content in ways that increases viewership and the bottom line for Netflix, also contributing to the customer satisfaction as well, viewer satisfaction as well. The second component of data-driven decision making is analysis methods. So statistical analysis can be done when plenty of data is being assessed by, say, for example, Amazon's A/B testing, a method where sellers can compare two different versions of a product listing element, like the title, the image, or description, to see which performs better than with customers. So continuous real-time data is collected by Amazon, and sellers on Amazon can utilize A/B testing based on statistical analysis, pattern recognition in terms of what customers purchase, what kind of seasonality effects are there, what's the demographic of customers that actually do online purchasing. All that precious data is actually being analyzed by Amazon using several analysis methods that are primarily statistically oriented. And decisions can be taken because a large amount of data can now be assessed and analyzed in quick time with great accuracy, which helps companies like Amazon, you know, cater and customize, say, their e-commerce availability of products, like the Amazon website itself, and make sure that customers see what they want to see. Products are available and they're presented in ways that actually catch the attention of customers. The third key component of data-driven decision making is implementation. So obviously there are certain things like action planning and then impact measurement. So those two things are extremely important for agile leaders if they want to have data-driven decision making. First element is action planning. Collect data, take the right set of actions, implement those actions. But obviously one very important step is to collect feedback, measure impact, and see how much of the strategies or the action plans that have been implemented are truly successful. Have they created the impact that was desired in the first place or not? And based on data collected, refinement in strategies, refinements in action plans can be implemented. And that's a very important way of looking at data driven decision making, followed by companies. I would strongly recommend you watching a video called Data Driven Leadership by Google Analytics, available on YouTube. It also shows what Google does in terms of collecting data, viewership, the choice of watching an advertisement based on content creation by content creators across the world. And so it's a very interesting video. I would strongly recommend you to watch that. Intuitive leadership is another way of looking at how decision making it can be done by agile leaders, balancing factors like experience integration. There's no substitute for the wisdom that leaders gain over a long period of time. So any kind of experience that has been gathered over a long period of time can really help in taking decisions that are based on intuition, because the experience integration is possible, and also because agile leaders who have experience recognize a pattern. They can depend on a gut feeling validation that they for sure know some actions or some decisions are going to work in certain situations because they have seen it before. Another way of interpreting intuitive leadership is quick decision making, and a classical example of Virgin's Richard Branson is quick at assessing a scenario or a situation, is willing to take extra risk, like what Virgin's Richard Branson has always done in the past, and that's a way of leadership which is pretty much based on quick decision making and intuitive leadership. The third intuitive leadership balancing factor is the people factor. For example, the way Starbucks, Howard Schultz, has considered a lot of people factors, like the farmers who supply coffee beans to Starbucks, the communities that actually help cultivate high quality coffee beans across the globe. Starbucks has taken a lot of consideration in providing information, technology about how to harvest good coffee beans for farmers that are engaged. They also secure for them a fair price for coffee beans that they purchase. They provide them with information, technology, and also education in serving these communities, these farmer communities that offer high quality coffee beans from several parts of the world itself. They also have a great emphasis for cultural consideration, and that's the people factor that Starbucks uses to great effect while taking decisions. And Starbucks is now considered to have that kind of societal impact on farmers and societies that are engaged with coffee cultivation and supplies of coffee beans to Starbucks itself. There's also the power of emotional intelligence, which we have discussed in a prior module. Intuitive leadership depends on how leaders can be self aware, they can define their self concept, they have this ability to self monitor and self control, they have high self esteem, and also high amount of self confidence while they take decisions. I would strongly recommend a video, The Power of Intuitive Leadership, uh, created by Stanford, that's available on YouTube for you to look at the balancing factors that are concerned with intuitive leadership. There is also another approach towards decision making, which is called as high stakes decision making. And obviously, high stakes decision making is based off on risk assessment. Like, for example, SpaceX's launch decisions are based on a risk assessment, which happens on real-time basis, including weather conditions, all the parameters, the functioning, the safety issues, all those considerations, also the resource impact, the time invested, and the kind of safety for astronauts that are on a particular launch mission. So risk assessment, because it's a high stakes decision making involved with SpaceX's launch. SpaceX also considers these as very important while they do risk assessment. The second approach towards high stakes decision making is looking at stakeholder management. Now, planning to communicate properly, clearly, and in a holistic way with all stakeholders concerned who are affected directly or indirectly is extremely important because there are high stakes connected to the decisions that are going to be taken. You also need, as an organization, to secure the buy-in of different stakeholders because only when you have the buy-in of, say, your employees, your teams, other suppliers, vendors, stakeholders, customers, clientele, regulatory authorities, government agencies. You need the buy-in when you're taking a high stakes decision. So communicating very clearly, precisely with all the kind of data that reinforces your decision, plus securing the trust and confidence and the buy-in of all stakeholder groups becomes extremely important for situations that involve high stakes decision making. High stakes decision making can also be approached from contingency planning, creating different scenarios for a particular decision model, say a pessimistic, a realistic, and an optimistic scenario, looking at the pros and cons of each of those scenarios, very closely monitoring the kind of consequences that you anticipate, the action and the benefits that are associated with each of those scenarios is very clearly validated with extra data that's collected, having experts participate in a series of meetings to assess each of the scenarios before one specific scenario is picked for implementation. And also in contingency planning, there is a strong emphasis on creating backup strategies. So what if cases are, discussed, what if cases are debated, and several backup strategies, exit strategies are created just in, situations of contingency. How can an organization minimize damage control or exit from a particular situation and be able to deal with certain uncertainties from the business environment itself. So high stakes decision making could be approached by first with risk assessment, understanding stakeholders and stakeholder management, and also creating contingency planning and backup strategies. So these are integral aspects of high stakes decision making that are very important for agile leaders to bring with them as they continue to push the envelope of innovation and learning and try to be transformative and implement a new vision for the organization. Now, the decision making tools, again, not an exhaustive list, but these are probably the decision making tools any agile leader would utilize in an organization, whichever framework that they choose to operate with. And the practical tools that can be used are decision trees, again, based on data, based on probability of what happens when something happens, what does it lead to, what is the probability and conditional probability associated with every action, creating option maps, option one, option two, and so on and so forth, probability assessment in terms of variables that are within the control of the organization, and trying to attach a probability for external events, anticipated forecasted events that are beyond the control of the organization. So decision trees is a very integral decision-making tool that organizations can use. And with the advent of AI and machine learning and data analytical tools that are available today, decision trees can be drawn and created with great accuracy, with as many branching as possible, with validations involving probability. So that's a very important decision-making tool that's available for an agile leader to implement. Priority matrices can be created. Impact versus effort can be analyzed in detail. Resource allocations can be factored in for every kind of scenario or effort to see how resources could be used to enhance the effort of employees and teams. and to also measure to great certainty the impact that you forecast for the future. And those are priority matrices that can help as decision making tools and validate if the decisions have been good or satisfactory or extraordinary in terms of creating the right effect. Consensus building is another decision-making tool. Example of Patagonia's environmental decision, where Patagonia is a fabric and clothing company, has made decisions, very conscious decisions of using recyclable material that has been, equitably sourced, and material that does not create pollution of the environment, that's decomposable and biodegradable. So Patagonia's decisions are very much related to how they care for the planet and its people, how they care about the environment, including procurement of raw material, having the right manufacturing processes, treating their workers and their suppliers with dignity and respect, and making sure their finished products are environmental friendly. Stakeholder engagement and alignment are very integral to consensus building, a very important decision making tool, because whatever decisions that agile leaders take for their organization have a lasting impact on several stakeholders. So, getting stakeholder buy in and also aligning decisions to serve stakeholders' best interests is extremely important for building a strong consensus and support all the way towards the end of implementing the decisions and achieving the KPIs and goals of both organizations, teams, as well as individuals. Collaborative approaches are very important in building consensus among stakeholders. So, engaging stakeholders, getting them to participate in several meetings, and also making sure that tapestry exists between these teams and understanding the synergies of working along with intergroup teams and intergroup team building and breaking the silos that could exist in any organization can only help and build consensus. Now, there are two recommended videos that I would suggest: Decision Making Tools in Practice by Mind Tools, Decision Making Simulations by Harvard Management Mentor, are two very good videos that are available on YouTube and that I would strongly recommend for you to watch in understanding decision making tools. How do you measure once decisions are taken and implemented? How do you measure decision effectiveness? And I think it's very important to measure how effective your decisions are, because if your decisions are not effective, you have an opportunity to go back and critically examine those decisions that worked for you versus those that did not work as well for you. So the key metrics that you could use for measuring decision effectiveness is process quality. So obviously, decision making is a process. How quickly were decisions made? That decision speed is a metric. Stakeholder involvement, how involved, engaged, motivated were stakeholders. The quality of information that was shared among stakeholders, the quality of information that was used at making a decision and implementing a decision. These are all process quality metrics, which is again very important for measuring decision effectiveness. The second one is very focused on outcomes. The outcome success is a very important metric for measuring decision effectiveness. How effectively were decisions implemented? What kind of goals were achieved? What was the return on investment and how was it measured? For every decision or action implemented, did we have a ROI, return on investment measured? These are all outcome driven metrics, which is very important for figuring out if our decisions that we took as agile leaders are really effective or not. The learning impact: how did we capture knowledge that is there available in organizational units, in teams, and as well as with individuals? How did we make sure that tacit knowledge is converted into explicit knowledge? How did we share that knowledge? How did we actually have a knowledge database and retrieve knowledge in a timely fashion to support decision making? That's the learning that goes on. It's a continuous process. So measuring how an organization is a true learning organization is also a measure of decision effectiveness. Process improvements: I mean, every process has owners, every process adds value to a product or a service. So, having to look at every process and every process contributing to additional value in the final product or service is an extremely important metric. Also, measuring the impact or effectiveness of team capability, how much of training has been imparted to team members, how skills and competences have been recalibrated and built upon, Did we build those potential competences required by team members to make them really capable, not just for today's jobs, but also to be prepared for challenges of the future? And measuring team capability is an extremely important learning metric that actually is connected to measuring decision effectiveness. A very important video that I would recommend here is Measuring Decision Success by Deloitte, and it's available on YouTube for you to watch. I strongly recommend you watching that video to better understand measuring decision effectiveness. So, what are the common challenges and solutions that organizations or agile leaders face while following a decision framework or while implementing decisions based on intuitive leadership and the different decision tools that can be used, and also how our decisions can be measured for effectiveness using the right metrics? What are the common challenges and solutions that any agile leader could possibly face? Challenge number one is analysis paralysis. If you took a lot of time to just do a data analysis, data collection, and you continue to collect extra data to validate the data that was already collected, I mean, you could lose precious time in taking decisions and implementing decisions. The solution is decision time boxing, which is specifically a time management technique that involves setting a specific time, a time period to make a decision. It can help you make a decision more efficiently by limiting the time you spend on it. And how does it work? Choose a task, pick a task that would benefit from a time limit. Set a goal, define what you want to accomplish within the time limit itself. Allocate time, set a specific amount of time for deliberating, collecting data related to the particular task. Work without distraction, that's the key. Individuals and teams have a separate time, available resources to focus on the task for the allotted time. There is a review process. You can assess if you have reached your goal and make any necessary adjustments. And that is the technique that we call as decision time boxing, because you don't want to lose precious time while taking important decisions. What are the benefits? Time boxing can help you avoid spending too much time on tasks that aren't worth it. It can help you be more productive by allowing you to work in manageable chunks. It can also help you be more flexible by allowing you to let go of perfectionism, to know that you can be practical, that you're flexible, you take decisions on time, you're able to implement it, and you're not having this problem of analysis paralysis. A good example of a company that implements decision time boxing is Facebook's done is better than perfect. That clearly avoids the analysis paralysis that can occur when there's too much emphasis on decisions, and also too much focus on data and not taking the decision on time. Challenge two is incomplete information. Decisions are purely based on data and information. So if you have not adequate information, obviously decisions are going to suffer in terms of quality and impact. The solution is minimum viable decisions. If you have a problem on hand and if you have data enough to take a decision that can give you a minimum viable decision, you don't have to wait for a complete set of information, which you might eventually never ever achieve. So you have to think about minimum viable decisions, and when you hit the threshold, you're happy and comfortable as a team and as an agile leader that you're implementing a decision. Challenge three is stakeholder conflict. If some of the stakeholders are upset with the decision, that doesn't augur well for the organization. As a solution, you need that alignment framework, engage different stakeholders, get them to meet, give them an incentive to participate, have them have a sense of belongingness and ownership of the decision. They should feel they're important and recognized as they participate and contribute to a final discussion that leads them to a decision. Establishing appropriate metrics is extremely important because you're making sure that stakeholders understand. You're also interested in measuring the effectiveness of the decisions taken. You take time to audit what kind of decisions have resulted in the kind of impact that you were anticipating. And if there were changes to be made, these metrics will tell you where you went wrong and how you can make those incremental changes to make future decisions really effective. A recommended video that I strongly recommend you watching is Decision Making Excellence by MIT Sloan School. It's available on YouTube for you to watch. I would strongly recommend for you to watch this video to understand common challenges and solutions that are connected to decision making framework, intuitive leadership, decision making tools, and also the metrics that actually help us effectively understand decision making effectiveness. There are certain additional resources that I'm happy to share with you. Thinking Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman is a good resource, good reading for you to read to understand how important decision making is in the life of an organization while faced with uncertainty, how decision making only can help agile leaders bring in their vision, implement their strategies in a timely fashion, look at iterative improvements, support a learning and innovation based culture, and create the kind of impact and transformation that they intend to. Decisive by Chip and Dan Heath is a very good reading. Online courses by Coursera, Decision Making and Leadership, edX course called Strategic Decision Making, a very important, nice online courses which are available that you might be interested to pursue at some point of time. The Decision Analysis Society is a good community where it talks about several aspects of decision making, and I would strongly recommend for you to visit their webpage and read a little bit more about all these topics that were discussed in this module. Thank you.